Greetings. Here it is. Yep, I've had this book for over 3 years. Um, First time I'm in this. It was a 1 Year Wonders book or video that I did. Did I actually do that one? Yeah, I did. And then there's various 1 Year Wonder players that are in here. So I've had this book for over 3 years, and I thought, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna do timestamps. So timestamps, I didn't do them on the preview last night. That's on purpose. If the previews are gonna be 1 minute per game that I'm doing a preview for, I'm not gonna bother with the timestamps. The previews, again, I was spending way too much energy and time on them. I know last night's preview did really, really well. That's the exception, not the rule. The previews as we go along will do a lot smaller numbers, and I know this. So we're going to talk about these games in order, as we always do. First time in over 10 months, so I know there's about 40,000 subscribers I've gained since the last time I did a preview, or review, I should say, so here we go. Philadelphia at home against Pittsburgh to open the season. This was the only game on for quite a while, and I learned during this game, I've gotten used to taking too many notes. And so I'm gonna have to cut that back. I did better on the last two games than I did on the first three, but yeah, just too many notes. Slow start in this game, and slow starts across the board, because remember, there were no exhibition games. So teams are just learning as they go. The Flyers pressed it around 3.5 minutes. Jarry looked sharp early. There was a 2-on-1. Konechny was denied by Jarry. So everything looks great. And then it's Jankowski scoring from McCann and Tanev at 5:13. Mark Jankowski. So it was a top shelf snipe. And I was like, you know what? That's a pretty good $700,000 they paid right there. Lawton then was guilty of a hold. Penguins go to the power play. Solid penalty kill by the Flyers. The shots were actually 6-4 by the Penguins at that stage. Hart denied Tanev. Brendan Tanev, I thought, had a good game. Gustafsson nearly got one. Boy, did Gustafsson look good in a Flyers jersey tonight. Really, seriously, this looks like the Gustafsson from a couple of years back with Chicago. Ceci then guilty of a slash. The Flyers go to the power play. Van Riemsdyk would score during the power play from Gustafsson and Farabee at 15 minutes and 11 seconds. Things get kind of chirpy. Malkin ends up taking a penalty with 15 seconds left. Things were chirpy because of Malkin's penalty. And then at 19:52, it's a power play marker for Nolan Patrick from Gustafsson and Farabee. So Gustafsson and Farabee both with two helpers in the first period. Nolan Patrick with his first goal in a very long time. So it was 2-1 Flyers after one. Second period, early penalty to Voracek. The Penguins go to the power play, and during that power play, Carter Hart with a mistake. It's a mistake. This is something that, it didn't look great for Hart. The interesting thing is, he tries to throw it up in front of his own net, and Crosby's there. So Crosby knocks it out of the air and puts it in at 3:39. It's a power play goal for Sidney Crosby. But it felt like Hart got better after that goal. Like that was a big moment for him that he was like, all right, I got to smarten up. Hayes ends up getting a break after that. Jarry stopped it, so we're in a 2-2 tie. Nolan Patrick then takes a penalty. Penguins go to the power play. They don't score. The Pens pressed with 7 minutes left, but shortly before the end of the period, it's Farabee who had a huge game. He scores from Hayes at 18:54 to put Philadelphia in the lead. We go into the third period. There was an early too many men on the ice call on the Penguins. The Flyers don't score on that power play. And then it's Tanev scoring from Jankowski at 3:01. So Jankowski with a goal and an assist in his debut with Pittsburgh. I think Penguins fans should be happy with his game tonight. There were other parts of this game they likely didn't like. Like, for instance, Hart denies Matheson, and then Raffle scores from Lawton and Aube-Kubel at 5:37. Great pass by Aube-Kubel on that setup. And then Konechny would score just past the halfway mark from Lindblom and Couturier at 12:14. And then it's 20 seconds later that it becomes 6-3 when Hayes scores from Farabee and Giroux at 12:34. So the Flyers, they bring this one home. They win 6-3. The shots were 14-10 for the Penguins in the first, 9-6 Penguins in the second, 10-10 in the third. The final shots 33-26 in favor of the Penguins. Jarry saves 20 out of 26. Hart saves 30 out of 33. And like I said, he recovered nicely after the assist on the Crosby goal. So the Flyers, they win their opener, and now they get to play Pittsburgh again on Friday. This is where things are going to get really, really interesting. There's going to be teams that end up 4-0 that we don't expect. There are going to be teams that are going to end up 0-4 that we don't expect. And there's not, an 82-game schedule. It's a 56-game schedule. It's much more compressed. It's going to be great. Next up, Toronto and Montreal. This was, for me, this was the game of the night. If I'm going to be, honest, this was the game of the night. This is the game that CBC and Sportsnet would like to see very often, and they're going to this year. These teams play each other a ton. So Habs got the first chances. Price then denied first chance by the Leafs. I think it was Matthews that got that first chance. Could have been Marner. 5 minutes without a whistle to start the game. So back and forth action, pretty wide open, and a fast game. The Habs get the first power play, and they led in shots 7-3 halfway through. The Habs then got another power play, and they scored on it. And the power play marker was scored by Suzuki from Petrie and Drouin at 12:50. I thought Nick Suzuki played very well. There were numerous times tonight where the announcers said, hey, look at the 200-foot game by Suzuki. He makes a big play at one end of the rink, and then he makes a big play at the other end. Must have watched my video. The shots were 10-4 Habs with 5 minutes left, but then Nylander scores from Hall and Tavares at 15:56. William Nylander had a fantastic game tonight, too. If he plays like this every night, Leafs fans and management will be very happy. And it was a screen goal. Carey Price didn't have much chance on it. And then it's Anderson. Josh Anderson scores from Tatar and Petrie at 19:37. And what seemed to impress everybody with Anderson in this game was his speed. So Anderson last year had, obviously major injury issues, only had the one goal for Columbus. Kind of a miserable year. Clearly, he feels good to be in Montreal. So it's 2-1 Montreal entering the second. Early chances for Montreal. Spezza and Simmons were then denied at the other end of the ice. There was a high stick then that fell Danault. There was no penalty. And he did stay in the game. It wasn't like anything major, so Montreal fans don't worry. And this was an interesting game, too, because today Sid Sixero on Tim and Sid had kind of a rant about Montreal and saying that they don't belong in the conversation as one of the better teams in the North because their numbers 1 and 2 centers are both basically rookies. And, they haven't done anything yet, and they haven't proven anything yet. And then he said Suzuki had a good week. That's where I said, he had more than a good week. He had a good rookie season. It's just that people weren't paying much attention during the regular season. And then, of course, on Twitter, Montreal fans were reminding him, they have Danault. It's not Kotkaniemi and Suzuki. They still have Danault. So it was one of those rants that I thought, this isn't well researched. Anyways, Bogosian then takes a penalty. The Habs get a power play. Drouin then had a break. Anderson saved that. But on the power play, it is Tatar scoring from Romanov and Weber at 7:20. If Montreal's power play is good this year, they have a much better chance of doing something in terms of making playoffs and maybe doing something when they get there. And it was a breakaway goal, too. Nice assist for Romanov. So, see, I believed Romanov would make the team. He gets a point in his first game. And, Tatar, that was already his second point of the game. Sherratt then had a fight with Simmons. It was a short fight, but it was interesting because this was a fight that Simmons immediately then signaled to his bench, the same way that a player would signal to fans, like, get up, let's get into it, come on, get into it. And it seemed to work. It did, even though on the power play that they got out of that, because there was an extra 2 minutes to Sherratt, the Leafs didn't score. But it felt like they really woke up, got into it. Anderson then takes a penalty. Leafs go to the power play. Edmondson was without a stick. So this is that. I was tracking this kind of sort of last year, where a guy was without a stick during a penalty kill. I'd say it was 5-on-3.5. It screws up the whole penalty kill. Sure enough, Nylander takes the advantage from Spezza and Hyman at 18 minutes. So Spezza on the board. Didn't they say that was the 600th assist or something crazy like that? The Leafs are back on it. And then Suzuki takes a penalty 18 seconds later. Oh, they're back on the penalty kill. But to make it worse, Shea Weber, right off of a face-off win, flings it right over the glass, and it's a 1 minute and 57 second 5-on-3 for Toronto. There is some work for Claude Julien to do with the Montreal Canadiens before their next game. During the 5-on-3, it is Tavares from Marner and Anderson, Freddie Anderson with the secondary assist at 19:21. It is unfair to give Toronto and the offense that they have a 5-on-3. Don't do that. And I don't want to hear anything about stats from last year and how they did on 5-on-3s last year. It's a new year. Things change from season to season. Don't give them a 5-on-3. So you go into the third, and this is a tie game. And at 1 minute and 2 seconds, Josh Anderson makes it not a tie game. Initially, they gave Suzuki an assist, but they took that assist away from Suzuki. We'll see if it ends up going back to him. I thought Suzuki had touched it, but it's fine. So Anderson gets the goal there to restore the lead for Montreal. Suzuki and Anderson were then both denied. There was some shot blocking by Suzuki as well. So again, they were. This was an organic thing where he was being mentioned because he was near the puck at all times. Where there was shot blocking, defensive play, body checks, in terms of just checking the guy out that he had to, because people are going to go looking. He didn't get a whole bunch of body checks. And then the offense was good too. So him and Anderson have some kind of a chemistry together that's going to be fun to watch. But VC then scores from Nylander at 10:33, and it felt like that turned the momentum a bit. So nice to see VC get on the board in his first game with Toronto. Nylander gets his third point of the game. Was Toronto's best player, I think. Although Matthews got a post after that, and I thought Austin Matthews had a pretty good game too. So we go to overtime. This is the only game that went to overtime tonight. So if you're a fan of a Canadian team, this was a 3-point game. Here we go. Toffoli was robbed, and then Riley scores the other way from Tavares and Matthews at 3 minutes and 24 seconds. It was a 2-on-1. And I was really surprised at just the... I know 3-on-3 hockey leads to a lot of 2-on-1s, but I didn't like how Montreal was defending there. And so yeah, Riley ends up getting the goal. Matthews with the nice pass from, I think it was from behind his own goal line to Tavares, who then headmans it over to Riley, who gets the goal. The shots were 11-7 Montreal in the first, 14-7 Toronto in the second, 12-9 Montreal in the third, 4-2 for Toronto in the overtime. Final shots 34-32. Price saves 29 out of 34. Anderson saves 28 out of 32. So interestingly, Price comes out of this game with poor numbers. I didn't think Price had a poor game. I thought the defense in front of him was letting him down. But again, this is a debate. We're already starting after game one. Let's just go ahead and put that on the shelf and wait for a couple of weeks, and we'll see where we're at with some of these goaltenders. Because early in the season, you will see a lot of games with 5 or 6 goals. There's a reason I have 9 goal magnets ready to go for each game. I'm expecting some rather high-scoring games. Speaking of which, and moving along, Tampa at home against Chicago. And this looked like a mismatch on paper, and then you get to the game, and it's a mismatch. They did a cup recap pregame where they also talked about first responders. There was a lot of talk about first responders before these games. Players understand that things are not great right now globally, and I thought they did a nice job of showing their thanks, and that was the case with the late games as well. And the Oilers had a nice pregame as well that we'll get to when we talk about that game. But it was nice to see the banner go up in Tampa. It is a shame they couldn't have fans in attendance, that they didn't have fans in attendance for this. Even 500, just something just for that. But hey, the early test was for Subban, and I felt bad for Malcolm Subban tonight. I did. I'm not saying he had a great game, but I did feel bad for him. The first 6 minutes favored Tampa. Kane had a break that was taken aside or kicked aside. Hawks get a power play. And at 8 minutes, the shots were 4-1 Chicago, but I didn't think the shots really told the story to that point. Wallmark had a shot that hit Vasi in the mask, and then when Tampa gets a power play, they make it work. Palat scores from Hedman and Stamkos at 10:39. The shots were 6-6 with 7 minutes left. Vasilevsky denied a chance for Brandon Peary, and then it's Joseph from Killorn and Cirelli at 16 minutes and 18 seconds. And sadly, it was one that Subban, it was behind his pad, and when he moved, he kicked it in with the back of his pad. Totally one of those goals that happens. You kind of bank it in off the goaltender. So that made it 2-0, and then less than 2 minutes later, it's Cirelli from Chernak and Killorn on a goal that they alternated between it being Chernak's or being Cirelli's. Cirelli did tip it, so it's Cirelli's goal. And again, There was no chance for Subban on that one, so it's 3-0. Last minute, the Hawks get a power play, but we go into the second period with a 3-0 lead for the defending Stanley Cup champions. Subban made some early stops, which it felt like was important for his confidence. But, I mean, really? Like, Tampa was just... They were Tampa tonight. Boquist takes a penalty. The Bolts get a power play. Pius Suter then had a break that was denied by Vasilevsky. I thought Suter had a good debut in the NHL tonight. Keith then got a delay of game. That's the third power play for the Bolts, and they score. Guess who gets it? Stamkos. Filling in for Kucherov, even though when you look at the setup, Braden Point, who got the assist on this goal, is kind of where Kucherov normally is. Hedman had the other assist at 9:56. It's just unfair when you look at the lineup that Tampa's still able to put over the boards for power plays. Tampa just the better team in this game. There's no other way to put it. They were just the better team. Shaw was denied in the last minute. I thought Andrew Shaw had a decent game, his first game back in a while, a long while. Third period, early penalty on Keith. Tampa Bay gets a power play. They don't score on it, but Braden Point would score to make it 5-0 from Stamkos and Sergachev at 6:45. So Sergachev's on the board. Stamkos has another point. That's his third of the game. Tampa's running things up. The shots were 5-2 for the Bolts at 9 minutes. And Chicago they just weren't in it. Once that score became 2-0, it just, I don't know, it just felt like the wind went out of their sails. And I understand it. This is a team that's dealing with not having Taves, not having Doc, and having seen Crawford leave, and knowing that management's basically said, we might be doing some kind of a rebuild/retool. The Hawks did get a power play, and they would score on it. Dylan Strome, he banks one in off Chernak's skate. They all count. That was at 16:36. That takes the goose egg off the board. So, at no point in this game did I write, will Vasilevsky get the shutout and then erase it when Chicago scored, just so you guys know. And Tampa Bay wins at 5-1. So, big win for Tampa. The shots were 13-8. For Tampa in both the first and second period, the shots were 7 apiece. In the third, final shots 33-23. Subban saves 28 out of 33. Again, I felt bad for the guy. Vasilevsky saved 22 out of 23. I was also surprised that they didn't take Subban out in the third period, but again, with the squash schedule, we may just see guys being left in there with the idea that, all right, the next game, they'll have Delia in and Subban's in there for the night. It's the opening night, so it's fine kind of thing. But yeah, so those are the first 3 games. Time to change boards. So, Vancouver, opening night. The Oilers had a very good opening night record coming into tonight. This game had kind of a slow start. There were early icings for the Canucks. I think they had 3 in the first 4 minutes. And they looked kind of, I don't know, discombobulated. And Hamonic had some rough moments. But keep in mind, Hamonic has barely met his teammates. Basically, it's just, hey guys, how's it going? What do you mean we're playing right now? I just met you. Slow it down. So there was some end-to-end action. It was a pretty wide-open game, and it was. There were a lot of really wide-open chances in this one. Puck to the chin on Schmidt. He did stay in the game as far as I know. The shots were 4-3 for the Canucks at 9 minutes. And Yamamoto then takes a penalty. The Canucks go to the power play. They didn't score on that. Virtanen takes a penalty. The Oilers didn't score. The Oilers' power play tonight, honestly, was kind of quiet. And, of course, their power play was a huge part of the reason that the Oilers had such a good record last year. Horvat would score from Pearson at 15:32. I'm telling you, Bo Horvat, we may accidentally have a star here. And I say accidentally because, all the talk about Pettersson and Hughes and Besser on some level too. And, Horvat, the team captain, he's pretty good too. He does have some good offensive instincts. So it's 1-0 Vancouver after 1. Second period, the Canucks tested Koskinen. Holtby then denied McDavid. I thought McDavid had so many prime opportunities that on any other night go in the net. I thought the Canucks were lucky that the puck was getting caught in his feet here and there, and that when he got a good chance, it just didn't quite go in. Yamamoto would score from Draisaitl at 5:39. It was a very nice goal by Yamamoto, and it let the Canucks know this is not going to be easy, which they should have known anyways. Holtby then denied Cahoon in what was a very wide open period that featured 31 shots. Neither defense tonight played particularly great hockey for Edmonton or Vancouver. Very entertaining for us, something that gives coaches gray hairs as they watch it happen. The Oilers had a power play. This, of course, was Connor McDavid's 24th birthday. They only mentioned it 863 times tonight, which I thought was kind of conservative. Draisaitl then nearly got one himself. It just hit the post. Quick. There were quick breaks both ways and just missing, narrowly missing, just almost at one end and then almost at the other. Höglander then gets his first NHL goal from Pearson and Horvat at 17-19, and not too bad. And I remember a comment on the channel from earlier. I'm trying to remember if it was earlier this week or if it was late last week. Höglander will not be an NHL player. There was somebody who said, I've watched him in Sweden. He's not going to be an NHLer. Don't talk about him. It's not going to happen, and gave these stats and said it'll never happen. Well, he's not only an NHLer, he got a goal tonight, so there you go. Horvat had a break then that was stopped, and then McDavid drew a penalty for Hamonic. Hamonic, again, was a little bit out of sync, but that is totally understandable given the very, very short period of time he was with the team and on the ice. And so being a little bit out of sync is fine. We'll see how he does in the next game. Third period, Darnell Nurse scores from Cassian and Bear before the ice is dry. 10 seconds into the third period. 10 seconds. Which may have caused a groan on my end. May have. Virtanen then hit the post. Now, Jake Virtanen was Jake Virtanen tonight. There were good moments. There were moments that made me shake my head and say, what are you doing, Jake? Overall, if this is how it's going to be until Miller gets back, there's going to be some white knuckle moments for Canuck fans, but they may be able to weather it. Gaudette then scored from Roussel and Hamonic at 1:53. So Hamonic, after a couple of penalties, he makes it up by getting the assist on this one. Roussel, though, with a really nice pass to Gaudette in front. And then less than 2 minutes later, it's Brock Besser from Quinn Hughes at 3:44. And yes, when Besser scores, and it was a nice shot on the goal, I do the whole Brock Besser thing, and I do the pose, and I had to run in and do that for the wife as well, because every time he scores a goal, I do that. And it's the silly thing that when you're a Canuck fan, there's not a lot of joy in being a Canuck fan. You know that you're going to have more heartache than joy. So it's one of the few things I don't care what the score is either. If they're losing 7-1 and he scores a goal, I'll still do it because I don't care. And then Larson with, I thought it was a fantastic goal. Adam Larson. I like Adam Larson. Okay. He gets the goal from Jones and Cahoon at 8:18. And I'm going to say it straight out. I think Larson is underrated. Leave all your hate there. But I do. And that made it close because that's what this game was going to do. And you knew with the defense being as loosey-goosey as it was, they had Myers with Hugh Levy, which I think is creative. And Hugh Levy had the play that Draisaitl pickpocketed him and threw it over to Yamamoto in the second. So, and I will say this for Travis Green, he had Hugh Levy back out on the next shift, which you can see that two ways. You really can. Either we have faith in you, or you can see him as a bad coach. There's two ways to do it. I prefer to say, you know what, he has faith in him. It's the first game of the year. Go out there, and if you're going to make mistakes, make them now. So Besser scores to make it 5-3 from Pettersson and Hughes at 13:46. I was asked the question as well on Twitter, which pass was better, the Hughes pass to Besser or the Pettersson pass to Besser. I thought the Pettersson one was better because the Hughes one to me looked kind of sort of lucky in that he's down on his backside and he's throwing it behind him. He's kind of hoping to make that pass, but not sure it's going to connect. The Pettersson one was a really, really nice one. Edler then takes a penalty because, again, there were no easy moments in this. The Oilers get a late power play and they pulled the goalie with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left. I honestly thought they were going to pull the goalie earlier than they did. They don't score on that, though, and then Puljujarvi takes a penalty with 1:49 left. So they had to pull the goalie in the last minute to make it a 5-on-5. Vancouver wins it 5-3. The shots, 8-7 Vancouver in the first, 17-14 in the second as they decide to play shinny rather than hockey. And then each team had 10 shots in the third. Final shots, 35-31 Vancouver. Holtby saves 28 out of 31. Koskinen saves 30 out of 35. I thought it was a solid debut for Holtby. And for Koskinen, there was one or two there that I thought, he probably should have had that. But again, we'll see how things go for the Oilers because tomorrow night these teams play each other again. Thinking it'll probably get a little more physical the next time these teams play each other, don't you? All right. Last up, St. Louis and Colorado. And I promise all the reviews will not be this in-depth. Or when we hit those really long days of 14 games. An hour and a half long video, no. That would be crazy. So, between St. Louis and Colorado, this game looked great early. There was fighting, and it got all scrummy 3 minutes in. The Blues were being very aggressive. Too aggressive. In fact, Sammy Blais takes a penalty and knocked Devon Toews out of the game in what he did. And I'm not saying whether or not that was more than a minor, but I know there's going to be Avs fans that think it was. So it's a power play marker for Burakovsky from Compher and Kadri at 4:55. And honestly, the momentum really shifted after that goal, and it felt like Colorado was starting to be Colorado. Now, you'll notice they made uniform changes tonight, which apparently on our Discord, people may not have been huge fans of. But Vaughn told me she heard about the new uniform and that it wasn't popular. But I don't think that had anything to do with what happened tonight. Because Sundqvist scores from Schwartz and Thomas at 9:33. This is with Toews still out. And it made it 1-1. And the momentum shifted back. And it shifted dramatically in favor of St. Louis. Kyrou would score from Bozak and Sanford at 13:15. This kid is fantastic. Kyrou had a very good game tonight. That could be an excellent line. Landeskog then took a penalty and the Blues got a late power play. So this could have been uglier than it was. It's 2-1 after one. The shots heavily favored St. Louis. So the second period, and the Avs played much, much better in the second period, just couldn't generate the needed goals. They outshot them early, 4-1, and the Blues were back a little bit. Binnington stopped a really good chance by Donskoy. Bortuzzo takes a penalty. Avs get a power play. They don't score on that. And then Bortuzzo took another penalty, which put the Avs back on the power play. They didn't score on that one either. In fact, they take a penalty, which leads to 4-on-4 play, and then the Blues get a 1:05 power play of their own. 1 minute, 5 seconds. Perron then hit the post on a 2-on-1, but the Blues maintain a 2-1 lead going into the third. That being said, the shots heavily favored Colorado in the second, so you thought, hey, maybe if Colorado can get one early in the third, and the Avs had the early chances, but both goalies had really settled down since the first period. This was, unlike other games tonight, this was one that really, really settled down and didn't feel quite as lopsided, for instance, as the Tampa-Chicago game, which was the other one that had less than 7 or 8 goals in it. Let's see, we had 9 goals, 8 goals. Yeah. So, a lot of goals tonight. And then in the third period, the shots were 3-2 for the Blues 6 minutes in, and then at 6 minutes and 46 seconds, Kyle Clifford from Barbashev. Clifford's offense is underrated because that's not what they pay him to do. But when he gets a chance like he did in front of that net, he can bury it. And he did. Calvert then missed a prime chance in front of the net. Looked skyward after that because that would have made it 3-2 and would have changed the complexion of the game. But the Blues were, shortly after that, really kind of taking control. The Avs were having a really difficult time making more than one pass. 2 or more passes, good luck getting it out of your own zone. Maybe, but getting into their zone, not so easy. And then, kind of out of nowhere, Sundqvist gets a goal from Thomas at 14:22 that seemed to catch everybody off guard, including the announcers. So Sundqvist with 2 goals tonight. He is the first one to do that in a long while. 2 goals in the first game of the season. And yeah, it was kind of out of nowhere, and it's a perfect road game by the Blues. This was all 4 lines were clicking. All 10 or all 6 defensemen seem to be playing really well. They're really, I didn't think St. Louis had a really bad weakness in this game. I thought they played very, very well. It was very impressive. The shots were 18-5 in the first in favor of St. Louis. Colorado did outshoot them badly in the second, 15-5. Shots were 8-6 in the third in favor of St. Louis. Final shots 31-26 for St. Louis. Binnington saves 25 out of 26. Grubauer saves 27 out of 31. Strong start for Binnington. After that first goal went in, there wasn't really much else there for daylight. And so for the Avs, back to the drawing board. But hey, they meet St. Louis 7 more times before the season's over. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding tonight's game. Don't forget to hit, and games. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.